The Queen is Dead. By Meep the Changeling. Chapter 1. Run, my child. Author's note. Hey guys. Please read the story's full description. This story exists because a friend challenged me to tell a serious swords and sorcery adventure story. It will have rather grim moments, and is less light-hearted than my usual work. But it will contain the same elements. Also, this is an alternate timeline of my own. Check the description for what's canon to this story. Warning, this story is set in an alternate universe. This universe has a few things some people don't like in their pony fic, including modern technology. It generally looks medieval because ponies are very long-lived, 300-year lifespans. Earth exists, but not how you might think. A serious heroic fantasy tone. Ever read a Forgotten Realms novel? Like that. But with ponies. End author's note. Jade, 14th of Megan 15 EOH, Dawn. You have to leave. My mother's panicked words jolted me out of my meditation. There was only one thing she could possibly mean. I could feel it in my hearts, like a rusty scalpel had been left inside me by a careless surgeon. I closed my eyes, and reached back through the mental link to reply, "Is it the swarm?" "It is." She answered. The sound of wood scraping on stone filled my room as she opened my door. Mother's face usually held a smile. The look on her face now was completely alien to me. The light of the candle I had been reading by cast an eerie glow around her face and mane. It made the fear and sorrow stand out even more than it did on its own. "Can anyone else go with me?" I asked, pleading for her to answer yes. I didn't want to go alone. Solitude was a death sentence for a changeling. No. She shook her head. Her loose mane seemed to glow in the candlelight. I checked with the hive mind. "You are the only adultling who hasn't finished swearing the oath of loyalty. The ponies refuse to flee and will stand with us. A nymph would never survive outside the hive, and would only slow you down." I had expected as much. Few eggs laid in the same month as mine had hatched. So far, I was the oldest of the batch. 17 years and 1 day. 12 more days and I would have been officially an adult, bound by arcane oath to protect the hive. I only just got my wings and horn, but surely I could look after my sister. Not even Jasper? I asked pleadingly, begging with my eyes. If changelings could cry in our natural forms, Mom would have flooded the room. A nymph, without flight. By the sun's light, why did she have hatched 8 years ago? Mom sobbed, hiding her cream-colored eyes in an arm. I bit my lip worriedly. Maybe I could carry her in a saddle. I would rather one of my children lives to see the sunset. Mom snapped, eyes blazing at an anger which made me recoil, even though I knew it was not directed at me. Her horn flared green as she pulled a pair of leather saddlebags into view, and then tossed them to me. "Put these on. There are 20 charged emote stones in the left hoof bag. They should be enough to feed you until you can reach somewhere you might find more food." I put your father's spellbook in the right side bag. He wrote notes in the margins. You should be able to teach yourself. I looked at the bag. A heavy feeling formed in the place my guts had been before I pupated into my adult form. I wasn't even used to eating emotional energy yet. I couldn't go somewhere alone. How can I feed without hurting some pony? I've only done it once. Mom walked over and gently ran a hoof through my mane, giving me a grim look. I also put a scout's guidebook in the bags. But for feeding, you'll find you already know how. It takes practice to use our feeding as a weapon. Her horn flared again as she pulled a cloth bundle over to us and held it out to me. "Take this. It's my old sword." She pulled the cloth away from the blade, a simple, short blade. It had a cross guard, and a grip clearly designed for a creature with hands. "You'll need something to defend yourself with before you can learn battle magic. Why, you did work out telekinesis before?" I nodded, interrupting her, "Yes. Just before you came in. You remember how to use a knife?" Mom asked, her mental tone growing dire. I nodded, gulping slightly. Yes. But I never did well in sparring. Doesn't matter. Just use it like a big knife. The motions are the same. Never draw it if you can run, and keep it under your bags. People will be more hostile to anyone who's armed. Mom's face contorted for a moment. My dad had been killed by a griffin because he was carrying a spear. I knew full well that carrying a weapon could hurt you as much as help. I am a scout, I could just spend all of my time morphed. I said, hoping to reassure her as I slipped the sword's sheath onto my right side, and set the bags onto my back. Sweetie, I know you did well in class, but trust me, actually blending in takes more than simply looking like a pony, griffin, dragon, or zebra. Mom sighed. Which is why you should put this on too. She held up the cloth the sword had been wrapped in. The brown cloth unfurled in her telekinetic grip, revealing itself to be a simple hooded robe. Why would clothes help? I asked, baffled enough for my words to carry some of my confusion through the link. If you pull the hood up and keep your wings under it, and keep the hood on you fully, you will look like a unicorn. They will need to notice your face to tell what you are. This won't work in cities or towns, you would look suspicious. But while traveling, you will seem normal. Also, it's waterproof, so if it rains you won't need to wait for your wings to dry to fly. Mom informed. The impossibly large, emotionally dead voice of the hive mind slammed into my head as I opened my mouth to reply. Emergency. Hostile creatures approaching hive. Soldiers to general quarters. Mom's wings buzzed against her thick chin in a panic and her jaw clenched in pain as the announcement finished. She was a soldier, the hive was in danger. I could see the pain on her face. Every second after the alert she spent doing anything but defending the hive was agony. Gee, go. Hurry. Take an air shaft in the mines. She turned to rush to the hive's entrance, to her death, to the death of my home. I don't. Go. Mom screamed, her spoken voice overlaying her mental voice as she ran from our small home. I couldn't say no to her. There was a knife in both our hearts, but she was right. I had to leave. If even one of us survived, and could find enough food, they could enter the second stage of adulthood and become a queen. We could rebuild. We would survive. I had to live. Mom was way faster than I was, in seconds she would be out of telepathic range. Where do I go? I begged. I knew nothing of the world away from the edges of our territory. Survive for now. Note in spellbook. You will be safe there. Move. A blast of images surged through the link, showing me the views from 100 eyes and the sounds picked up from 100 ears. The entire southern sky was black, the sun blotted out by the sheer mass of the swarm. I could see her at the front of it, the demon queen, green eyes burning with hatred for everything which lived. They said Chrysalis rediscovered the way the Overmind had controlled its changelings, making the thousands of changelings in the air act as one creature under the force of her will. Nothing could stand against the swarm, and they knew it. They willingly let her use their bodies. I felt the icy touch of fear grip the back of my neck. Knowing who stayed here would live through the hour. They were thousands, we were hundreds. My home was about to be a mass grave, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Deep down, something snapped. Fear became anger. Anger became purpose. Purpose became action. I stuffed the robe into my saddlebags and bolted out of my room, sprinted through our modest apartment, burst into the corridor, ran up the wall to avoid the flood of lings rushing along the floor, and made a beeline for the nursery. There was no way in Tartarus I was leaving my sister here to die. The carved stone walls of the hive shot by as I sprinted as fast as I could without falling into the rows of soldiers and royals below. I knew the route. 5 passageways south, turn left, 3 passageways east, turn right, second door on the left. I ran on autopilot, hooves gripping the carved walls, cracking the plaster covering with the force of my panicked passage. A small part of my mind screamed at me to stop running on the walls, that the queen would make me fix them. I almost laughed at that part of me. That should have been the least of my concerns right now. I guessed my brain was desperately scrambling for normality. The wooden doors of the nursery seemed to just appear in front of me. That wasn't good. I always started losing memory when panicked. I needed to calm down. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open with my telekinesis. The terrified pleas and cries of 100 nymphs hit me like a wall. The older nymphs were doing what they could to help the really little ones, but there wasn't an adult, or even a pony in sight. I swear my left heart stopped beating as I realized there was no way for me to take them all with me. This was wrong. It was evil. This was why Mom had told me to just go, so I wouldn't have the weight of choosing between saving my sister, and trying to save as many as I could. Oh God, I should have listened. With a pained gulp I searched for Jasper's mind, formed a link and cried, "Jasper! We need to go. I'm at the door. Sis! Where's Mom? I want Mom!" Jasper demanded. "Mom! Mom's not here. She's helping keep the bad guys away," I answered. A second later Jasper untangled herself from the sea of terrified young. She was small for her age. Small for 8 years old. Less than half the way to adulthood for her caste. As she rushed to my side I picked her up with a hoof and set her on my back. Jasper was barely as big as a saddlebag, carrying her was nothing. "But I want Mom." Jasper sniffled. I could taste her fear and sadness as it radiated off her. That wasn't good. "Jas! Please, calm down. You'll make me sick," I begged as I steeled myself to leave everything else behind. It would be hard for a nymph to understand. A changeling doesn't sense or eat emotions until we become adults. We live on love, on the positive, pleasant emotions. The negative, distressing ones work like poison. The more of it in a given area, the more toxic it is. Jasper sniffled and wrapped her arms around my neck to hold on. "But I want her. Where are we going?" she begged, her emotions still slamming into me like a thrown brick. "We're going outside, okay? We're going to hide until the bad guys go away," I said. Maybe a miracle would happen. Maybe we would drive the swarm away and Jasper and I could go back home after a few hours. "We're going to that hill we had a picnic on last year until everything's all over, okay?" I said as calmly as I could. "Oh okay." Jasper sniffed. I carefully ran out the door. I couldn't take the wall this time. Jasper was never good at holding on. The hall was far less crowded, all of the soldiers must have been deployed already. The corridor was now full of mages, carefully and expertly erecting wards and setting traps. I guess the queen wanted to try to hold out. That was good. Maybe we had a chance. Our hive was old, its walls were carved out of the heart of the mountain, and we had plenty of magic on our side. Maybe we would be able to survive. Maybe there was hope. But, to be safe, we definitely needed to leave for the moment. I ran down the hall, ducking and weaving between the long spindly legs of the mages. Their caste had always creeped me out in their natural forms, even my own father thought they were just so tall, and so thin, and the way their eyes glowed like the coals of a fire. I understood why we unsettled so many species thanks to them. The sound of a distant explosion shattered the newborn hope. The floor lurched as the blast echoed through the hall. Jasper's arms tightened around my neck. I think she screamed, but my ears were ringing too loudly for me to tell. They kept ringing until I reached the end of the hive proper. The smooth plaster-covered stone walls stopped dead, leaving the rough-cut walls of the mines to stretch out into the heart of the mountain. The part of the hive we lived in wasn't too deep beneath the surface, and drones dug a ton of air shafts to keep fresh air in the hive. That was how we were going to get out. "Hold on tight, Jasper, I'm going to climb," I said as I spotted a nearby iron grate set into the center of the ceiling, the entrance to an air shaft. I felt her head brush against my neck as she nodded, her hooves gripping onto my chitin tightly. Okay. That's better than usual. Did you figure out how to climb? I asked, hoping to take both our minds off the situation. Yeah. You just don't think about it and it works. Jasper informed as I started up the wall. I smiled just a little bit. I remembered learning to climb. Your hooves really do all the work. If you try to step fancy or grip things like you want to pick up the wall, you just fall off. As I approached the air shaft, I quickly opened the grate covering it with my telekinesis, and scurried through into the air shaft. We had to be a mile from the hive's entrance, but the moment I stepped into the shaft I could smell burnt chitin, and just barely hear screams drifting through the air. I stopped climbing for a second, took a breath to steady myself, and resumed climbing. Just wait till you can do that too, I said softly, hoping to keep the conversation going. Is it fun? Jasper asked, her fear was slowly fading away. Thank the sun she was still too young to understand what death was. I smiled and shook my head slowly. Yes, it's pretty awesome. You feel things a lot better with your magic. I pulled myself up over a small ledge. Some ling had hollowed out a little body-sized depression in the side of the shaft. Probably a drone or worker who wanted to nap unseen. Is shifting fun? Jasper asked. I wanna be a zebra when I grow up. It's the best thing ever, Jas, and I'm going to make sure you get to be a zebra all you want. I promised. I had only morphed once so far, just so the doctor knew I was a healthy adult. I hadn't had time to play around. An adult's first task is to master the basic magics, then to master shape-changing. For 5 minutes I had been a Pegasus. Everyling says that your first shift changes your whole life. I always thought that was silly. It's completely true. Jasper deserved to know what it felt like to shed your form and take on another. To have that ultimate power over yourself to truly decide who you are and what you will be. With some luck, when Jasper pupates, she'll be a scout like me, and have even more control over herself than the other castes. I could show her all the tricks I had learned by then, and we could work together to keep Everyling fed. The end of the shaft was only a few body lengths above us now. A second iron grate covered it, and a large bush concealed it from view. That was good, I could get a look outside without being seen. The iron gate creaked as I pushed up on it with my magic. Flakes of rust and dirt trickled down into the shaft below, making me wince and hope no one had heard anything. I froze, clamped onto the edge of the shaft, and waited. Seconds passed, then a minute. Nothing happened. No one shouted, no spell came flying through the air towards us. I let out a relieved breath and slowly pulled myself up into the bush, trying to make as little noise as I could. "Noling's here," Jasper said as I slipped the rest of the way out of the shaft. Over the years, Jasper and I had stolen hundreds of cookies from the kitchen. She knew when I was being sneaky, and was a damn good lookout. I trusted her word. I also knew I would miss eating solid food badly. Then, I remembered I could shapeshift, and I could enjoy a cookie as a unicorn if I wanted. But would it taste the same? The vision had been totally different. Surly taste would be too. A gust of wind blew across the mountainside, shaking me out of my thoughts, and bringing the smell of burnt flesh back to my nose. I sputtered, as my throat contracted, a dry heave pushing up from deep within my chest as I reflexively held back whatever bile wanted to come up. I don't like that smell. It's bad. Jasper whined, pulling herself close enough to my back to make my chitin creak. Yes. It's bad. That's why we are going away for a little bit. I answered, slowly creeping out from the bush. The mountainside was nice and grassy, with clumps of bushes and trees. Mount Nur was fortunately a little mountain, only a few thousand feet tall, and our hive was built into its roots. A sea of natural vegetation covered the mountainsides, and the mountain's base was covered in a sea of golden wheat. I could see everything stretching out in front of me. The sun was just barely over the horizon, putting a nice pink glow around everything. If this had been another day, I might have stopped to watch the sunrise. But I couldn't stop, not today. We were almost off of the mountain already. The plants would hide us as we fled, we just needed to make sure we weren't spotted from above, and everything would be fine. Well, not everything. I felt that knife in the guts feeling again. That smell. How many people were dead? How many of them had I known? Why did she have to do this? Changelings could live in harmony with other species. Zebras and ponies lived in our hall with us happily. I closed my eyes for a moment, focusing as hard as I could to keep my head straight. I had to save Jasper. I had to get to the hill just a little ways ahead. A quarter mile. I could do that. Jas, I need you to look up. If you see anything who doesn't have a white shell, tell me to run, okay? I asked, knowing Jas could spot anything overhead faster than they would see us. I felt her nod again. Okay. I started to walk, the tall grass shushed against my chitin, branches rustled as I nudged them, each hoof fall made a small click against the ground. I winced at each sound, my eyes flicked from left to right, searching for anything moving through the grass. If Jasper wasn't on my back, I would have bolted for the hills. With every sound I made my heart skipped a beat. On a good day I could make it to any hill near the mountain in 5 minutes. This felt like an eternity. As the ground leveled out, I froze in terror. I had made a fatal error. The wheat was shorter than I thought. It wouldn't hide us from anything. We would have to get through as quickly as possible to the safety of the trees on the other side. With a nervous chitter, I took off as fast as I could. The wheat flew by us, my hooves pounded against the ground. Jasper squeaked as my run jostled her around, I felt her dig her hooves into my sides to hold on. Slow down. She begged loudly. I can't. We got to get there really fast. I replied. Why? Jas demanded. Because of the bad guys, remember? I reminded, a hint of my stress creeping into the link unintentional. I felt Jasper grow uneasy. My stress had been enough to let her know that something bad was definitely happening. Sure, she's known before, but now she knew her big sister was afraid, her sister who wasn't afraid of anything. I closed my eyes and begged the sun to not let her panic. Oh okay. Jasper said, her mental voice cracking with fear. Oh cordyceps, had I let other memories slip through the link? My thoughts were interrupted as I finally reached the base of the hill. We could find a safe place on the top to hide for now, and I could calm Jasper down, everything would be fine, we just had to get to the top of the hill. I darted up the side of the hill, turned around the side of a large rocky outcropping and ran face first into a solid wall of feathers. As my plot slammed into the ground, Jasper slipped off my back, landing on the ground with a thump. I was about to scream in pure terror when the wall of feathers turned, revealing itself to be a huge griffin. He had feathers like a raven, but edged with white, a beak like a sparrow, and burning eyes like a hawk. His tail lashed behind him, almost angrily, but in an amused sort of way. He had a tunic tossed over his chest and barrel, on which I could make out the crest of some kingdom or another. More importantly, behind him stood at least 40 more griffins, all with the same black and red tunics, and each with a weapon of some sort. I quickly pulled everything I learned in class about Griffonies to my mind and shouted, "Praise the sun! The swarm is attacking our hive, you have to hell! Greyhawk, these ones too!" The black griffin called, turning and walking away. What? I asked, confused. There was the sharp sound of steel ringing, pain exploded from my barrel. Looking down I saw the back end of a steel bolt buried in my chitin, thick blood oozing from the shattered hole in my chitin. I fell to my belly as a second sharp thud and snap of a crossbow broke the air. The world slowly became grey, then black. "Sir, are you certain we have to kill anything who makes it out?" someone asked, their voice sounding watery. His Majesty was very clear. He wants the mines beneath Ner for Griffonia. If any more are left alive once Chrysalis is done with the place, they will have legal claim to the land. You do know changelings have 2 hearts, don't you? We don't want it regenerating. Put another bolt into the big one, a bit to the left of the first, another voice commanded in a calm, dismissive voice. A dull thud sent another nightmarish hell of pain through my body. As the world vanished, I had only two thoughts. First, the knife in the gut feeling felt absolutely nothing like being stabbed in the gut, I shouldn't use it anymore. Second, I was completely confused. Changelings don't have two hearts, we have three.